right? There was this 4-game stretch I was looking over, and Jesse, I know you would be excited to hear this because I thought if you're looking at a good stretch to start Trey Lance, if you look at Week 11, the Jaguars, right, it would be an
Okay.
awesome game for him to start. You and I are both going to be at that game in person, of course.
I love
But
it.
if you look at the next few games, I believe it's the Vikings, the Seahawks, who that's a tougher game. But then the 4th game of that stretch is the Bengals. I don't think there's an easier 4-game stretch in the season for the 49ers. So if you're going to insert Trey into the team at some point mid-season, that would be great. And of course, I think you have to acknowledge this too. The trade deadline it was week 8 last year, but the 17-game season might be a little different. But that might be a spot where the team decides to offload Jimmy Garoppolo if Trey is ready. That could be a natural sort of point for the team to make that sort of decision. So I guess, if he isn't starting week 1, Jesse, what do you think about that? What do you think about the midseason starting midseason?
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because honestly, when I looked at the schedule, I didn't really see a good breaking point. Like the best spot that I saw, naturally people are going to say the bye week, right? The problem is with the bye week, you're coming out and you're playing the Colts next. That's not a good decision.
National TV.
On national TV. That's not the spot, okay? So the only other spot that I saw as a realistic point would be when they played the Texans. But at that point, you're like week 16 or 15 or whatever it is. It's really late in the season. That's not going to happen unless they're out of it playoff wise. So
yeah, if the team is out of it, that'd be good. But besides that, if you're optimistic about this team, the Texans wouldn't be the first game that he would be starting.
No, definitely not. So yeah, I mean, I think if there's anywhere in this season, that's actually a really good spot. That is a good 4-game stretch. I don't know how it lines up. I almost feel like, and I'd have to look at the schedule again, but I feel like that Jags game is a quick turnaround in an early game Pacific time. So I don't know, maybe that would mess with it. I guess there's really no right answer, right? Like people say if they're quitting, thank God I've never been a smoker, but they say if you're quitting smoking, there's never a good time. You just got to do it. Right. Well, maybe there's just never a good time. You got to do it. And whether that's week 1, week 3, week 8, whatever it is, just do it. If he's ready, he's ready. And I want to be clear. If he's not ready and the team doesn't think he's ready, do not put him in. I agree with you. You cannot have a Tua situation where he's in and out. You definitely don't want to mess with his psyche. This team is more of a win now than what Buffalo was with Josh Allen, so they could let him struggle. I get all of those things. I guess my point is this. Even when I look at Jimmy at his best in 2019, he was a turnover waiting to happen. He's a bad decision maker. Everybody wants to talk, well, if he was just healthy. No, that's so revisionist history. This guy is a bad decision maker and a slow processor. And how do I know that? Well, even in his best season, he had 27 total touchdowns, 20 total turnovers. And if you're watching the same games I am, there was at least 10 to 12 more picks that could have been thrown. Heck, if they didn't take the ball out of his hands against Minnesota, they would have lost that game. They would have lost that game if they had put it on Jimmy's shoulders.
We would have a very different outlook of Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers right now if Jimmy had turned the ball over in those games. And listen, you harped on the most important thing with this just a second ago. If Trey Lance isn't ready, do not play him. That is the worst thing you could do. I mean, with Tua Tagovailoa this year, I wasn't necessarily high on him, but when you look at what happens, I mean, if Tua doesn't play well this season, if he isn't good in the first 4 or 5 games, 6 games he plays, it's going to be a disaster in Miami. Now they have the draft capital to make it work out and potentially draft another quarterback. But hey, if Tua isn't the guy in the first few weeks of that season for them, he's going to be out. And that's the type of situation I don't want Trey Lance in. I don't want to put all this pressure in the world on him when you don't need to. I think that's kind of where I come to with this issue. And with Trey, listen, we don't know when he's going to be ready. Only the team does. Only the players will. But, I mean, if he's ready, play him week 1. That's my attitude. But quite frankly, from everything I've read, from everything we know about Trey, I just don't know if he's going to be quite there week 1. And I anticipate more of a, week 6 through week 12 sort of start for him. I think it's just going to take him a little time to get himself, under his feet and be ready for an NFL game.
Here's what I want to say too. Usually what's going to happen with a rookie is they're going to be a slower decision maker because they're just trying to get used to the NFL speed, the playbook, all those things. Okay. So yeah, that's a real possibility. He's going to be a slower decision maker. All right. Well, we already know that he has some tendencies to miss going right. Okay. He's going to throw a little high. By the way, these are both things that Jimmy does. Jimmy's a slow decision maker and he misses high very frequently.
That's
So
true.
let me peel back an onion a little bit, or a layer of the onion. Trey Lance did just fine throwing the ball. Everybody wants to come up with this. He only threw it 18 times a game in the FCS level. What do you think he's going to do with San Francisco? San Francisco are they not the first run, a run first team all the way through, right? So you think that we can get away with him throwing the ball 18 times a game? Yeah, I do. The
I
other
do.
thing that Jimmy struggles with is as soon as he turns his back to the defense, he loses all sense of what's going on around him. That's when the most interceptions come.
Mhm.
Well, if the offense is predicated on a run game and you can't go play action because your quarterback, quite frankly, cannot process, that's a problem. With Trey
Absolutely.
Lance, you can go play action. Sure, he may process slow because he's not used to the game speed, but at the very least, he can take off running and make something happen with it. He can
Yeah.
throw a deep ball. He can keep IU happy. There's so many things you can do with Trey Lance that even if he's at 70% of what he's eventually going to be, in my opinion, that's still as good, if not better than Jimmy. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm very bullish that he's going to start week one. I'm not going to, again, like I said, there's nothing that anybody can say. There's no highlight you can show me. There's no struggle you can tell me about. He is starting week one until he doesn't, and that's my stance on it.
Well, and let me just help you out even a little more with your argument, Jesse. Something that popped into my mind that I haven't even looked at in 2 or 3 weeks. But if you look at the breakdown of the 49ers run game in 2019, it was 51% run, 49% pass. Go back, look at the Washington football team's numbers. They're the exact same. So the idea that Trey Lance can't come in and run this offense because he's going to be passing a lot is stupid to me, because he's not going to be passing the ball a lot. And listen, this is something that I even thought early on when we were doing all the evaluations of this guy. It's like, look at his pass attempts. You look at his pass attempts per game. I mean, it is scary to look at if you're looking at college quarterbacks. But when you place him in the 49ers, I mean, what he's going to be able to do, they're going to be running the ball so much. I mean, just even in that Super Bowl run that we saw, they took the ball out of Jimmy's hands. I mean, if that's Trey Lance, they're probably throwing the ball more, which is so funny to think about with Jimmy
Right.
Garoppolo versus Trey Lance. But yeah, I mean, I actually, even though I might have a slightly different opinion about you from you on this, I agree with all your points, and I think you've been on top of Trey Lance from day one, and you've been nailing it with him.
I'll say this too. You want to add in, it's not just the run game. Okay. So let's say it's 51%. We add in a mobile quarterback, that could jump to 55%. Okay. So now we're at a 55-45. Then let's say 20% of the throws are at or behind the line of scrimmage. Well, realistically, we're only asking him to throw downfield one out of every 4 or 5 plays at Matt. He can
Yeah,
do that. I don't care. He can do it. He's gonna be the starter week one.
yeah.
I'm not I'm not budging on it.
Hey, and I'll leave on this nugget with this topic. The Lamar Jackson led Ravens, they ran the ball 54% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference between what the 49ers were doing and what they were doing in terms of how much they were running the ball, it's not that different. So, I mean, sure, I really agree with that point. And I think that's smart to point out with Trey Lance, is that he can come in and operate the 49ers offense running the ball a lot. I mean, he really